Our parish conference was just being formed, and there were advertisements in our church bulletin asking for volunteers, people who wanted to help get a conference going at our church. And I was raised to help and to seek out volunteer opportunities, and it just really spoke to me. So I went and started attending the meetings and realized what a great group of fantastic, spirit-filled people the group was, and so started volunteering. And with our conference inception, I actually became the treasurer and held that position for 6 years. So the turning point in getting involved at the conference level, when our conference first started, we were doing home visits to our neighbors in need over in the Allied Drive neighborhood, close to where our church was, and running the usual food drives, blanket bee, the recycle the warmth, that sort of thing, and really bonding together as volunteers with our spirituality and friendship is key. The three-legged stool, service, spirituality, and friendship. And at the inception of our group, it was very important to get all three of those in place so that we had the stability to grow the conference. I became involved in the food pantry work actually just in the last few years. I was a conference member activity person for the first, 17, 18 years, doing home visits and parish level activities. And the food pantry, after the pandemic, was looking for volunteers, and I really wanted to get to know more about how that process worked. And so I began first helping load cars, as our drive-through model is in place now. So you got to see the neighbors as they came through and, gave them the food they needed for their families. And I also, just kind of threw my hat in the ring to say, what else do you possibly need? And so now one of my activities, I also pack the DoorDash orders, which is a key newer component where we can actually get food to families who can't get to us, which is huge. When I first started doing home visits back with St. Maria Goretti, I learned a lot from the people we visited. I can remember going to see this single mom from Harlem. She had just moved into town with 5 kids. And I was so excited and gung-ho to tell her, oh, we have a food pantry that you can go and visit and get your food. And she went, oh, well, how will I get the food back? And all of a sudden, my heart was open to, oh, it sounds very easy to have a food pantry, but there's so many people who can't get there, or how was she going to get on the bus and then carry the groceries home with 5 kids? So I'm so excited and proud that the district has embraced and sought out the needs in our community and is filling this role for some of the families who just can't get there. It can absolutely lead to burnout at times, but what keeps me involved is the joy that you get by serving. I mean, it is a privilege to be the hands and feet of Christ, going out and spreading his love, and the resources that we have are only ours because God gave them to us. So to me, it's critical to share those resources, be it treasure or time, with those in need. And so really, there's been so many moments through my 22 years with the organization that feed you, that fuel you. And just knowing that if not for the grace of God, it could be me, realizing that these are just people who might need a little extra support right now, and I'm privileged to be able to give it. And it's really just a blessing to be able to serve. Yeah, there's the people that have me come back and return and keep going. There's different levels. So there's the clients that I serve. This single mom from Harlem that I met 10 years ago, I think it was, has kept in touch over the years. Her successes, her concerns, she's reached out at different times to let me know what her kids are doing, different programs that she's done to improve her life. And she is now a caseworker over at another organization, which was a long dream of hers to obtain. And she just reached out a couple weeks ago to let me know that, hey, I finally got that role I wanted so that I can congratulate her. And I mean, that was 10 years ago. And her child is now, she reached out and said, hey, she had a child. And so I'm reaching out and supporting that, her daughter as well. And it's just a full circle moment to be able to see the change that just one visit can lead to, the relationships where you can continue to embrace and support, but also celebrate the successes of the clients we serve. As far as why do I come into the pantry and the people who serve there, it is a very diverse group of people who volunteer and who serve in the warehouse and the staff themselves. And it's fun. It's joyful. I have a quote that I keep on my desk that is, joy is the most infallible evidence of God. And to me, the joy that the volunteers have, that the workers have as we're serving, it just feeds you. It really does. And it's an exciting, happy, funny crowd to work with. The friendships that you form at conference level as you talk about the successes and you talk about the challenges that we face, because it's not all easy. And there is the potential for burnout. And part of that friendship and spirituality at the conference level is a support for each other and for the community. We problem solve, troubleshoot together, and kind of find the best way to go about serving those around us and to serve each other in that. There's also social gatherings that we have at the conference level to make sure that the friendships have an opportunity to grow, that it's not all business. The values are kind of woven in everything, so to name a particular one, but certainly humility and the dignity of those we serve is key. Making sure that it's not just us with a clipboard keeping track of items. I mean, there's people, there's stories behind every individual that comes through, either to get food or clothing or furniture through our home visits. It's not just a transaction, it's a human being, it's a family. And so to recognize the dignity of those we serve and to serve with humility, not judging, understanding that there are things that bring people to need help and that doesn't make them lesser in any way. Sense of celebration and milestones, absolutely. I became president of our conference at St. Maria Goretti kind of by accident. I wasn't at the meeting, and I was voted president, and I said, very funny, God. And it was a sense of his presence more than ever. When I stepped into that role, he sent me ideas and thoughts and things that I couldn't ever claim as my own. And so there was a moment after I became president that I was trying to figure out how to fundraise, how to help, because each parish has their own financial responsibility, each conference, and you have to figure out how you're going to fund the good works that you do at that level, the things that you bring to families and home visits and things. And I got a voice in my head, if you will. It sounds weird, but make blankets. I went, make blankets. I don't do that sort of thing. And it was make fleece blankets. And I had never honestly seen the process of making fleece blankets. Somebody had given my kid one, the ones where you tie the little corners. And I was like, make blankets, okay. Little weird, God, but let's talk about it at the next meeting. And I said, I think we're supposed to make blankets. And maybe it will bring the parish in a little bit. And I still have to this day, 50 blankets was the number in my head. And I went, I'm not doing 50 blankets. And at the time I went to the fabric store and I'm like, I'll do 30. We don't even have the money for the materials, really. Said, but I'm going to trust here. And so we went and got the fabric for 30 blankets, and we advertised in the bulletin that we were going to have a blanket bee where families could come in and help us make fleece blankets that we would then bring on our home visits. And it was also the same time as the rage of those rubber band bracelets at school. And I had 2 kids at school at that point. And I said, okay, let's have the kids involved too, so that it's a whole family gathering to do these things. And so we planned the blanket bee, and we planned this and advertised. And we had no idea if anyone was going to come. We did it on the Saturday of deer hunting. And we opened the doors, and it looked like the Field of Dreams. People poured in, and we had 100 people come that day. The 30 blankets were done in the first hour. We had allocated 2 hours. And at the end of it, I was just blown away by how it helped raise awareness in our parish of the good works we do. I had no idea, really, that people weren't aware. You kind of assume people know what you're doing. And they asked me to say something at the end. I'm like, I don't know how to speak. And I just kind of talked to the parish about how these blankets were going to go to the families that we visited, and that the bracelets were going to the children who we were helping get off of the floor where they were sleeping. And it helped increase awareness at the parish at such an astronomical level. The blanket bee grew to where we had people sponsor blankets for a family, which helped us raise money, and that helped to raise awareness of the good works that St. Vincent was doing in the community. And so for me, that was such a moment to celebrate that God was so clearly walking with us to help us help our neighbors. And it was just an amazing, incredible experience to be part of. Challenges we faced are twofold. There's challenges at the conference level when we're going to do home visits with families and finding out what their needs are. There's never enough to go around. You can't help the families as much as you want to. A lot of the times there are, high utility bills, high rent bills, trying to help them have a stable, supportive environment for their family can be a real challenge. And there's so much need, and it can feel overwhelming at times. And that's where the friendship and the spirituality kind of help remind us, Jesus said the poor will always be among us, but we are called to help alleviate their pain in whatever way we can. And so there are challenges at the conference level, getting the funds that you need and getting the volunteers that you need. There are a lot of people who seem hesitant to go into the families' homes, and in reality, it's a blessing to be able to go and serve and really just welcome them to the neighborhood. That is how I always approach the home visits. It's not, oh my gosh, look at you, in need. It's, hey, welcome to the neighborhood. What a great place you've got. Looks like you could, use a couch or use some kitchen stuff. Let's help you get there. But it is also a challenge just not to be saddened so much by the needs that you can't always address. At the pantry level, challenges are wanting to help everyone again. And there are logistical challenges to getting the items to the families, to making sure they're quality products. And I think that with the partners we have in the community that help us stock the shelves through the parish truck drives, through Second Harvest that helps us provide the food that we give so that our budget doesn't go too far through the roof because the finances, are always a challenge. When I was a president again, we saw the Port St. Vincent that was transitional housing for men downtown, and our conference realized that the men down there could use a hobby. And after talking to the director there, he thought that a garden would be a nice thing for the guys. And we got a group together from our parish to go and install those nice raised bed planters and go down and plant them. And that was a really neat activity because we had very young to very old people who came and helped with that. And then we sat and had lunch with the guys after and talked to them about the plants. And they really embraced that. They couldn't have pets at the port, but Peter, who used to be the director, talked about how the plants were kind of like their pets. They cared for the tomatoes and got to see the harvest, and that was a great yearly tradition. We went Memorial Day weekend and did that. From what we understand, the men, several of them anyways, were very pleased and very proud of the crops that they got out of these small gardens that we planted. They would watch the tomatoes grow and say, I did that. And then they got to enjoy the fruits of their labor, literally. And it got us a chance to sit and really get to know them a little bit as well. Probably one of my favorite smaller memories, if you will, would be when my first son was a toddler. We used to glean produce from the Regent Market Co-op and take it over to the Port St. Vincent, again, where their chef could make meals out of it. And my 2-year-old at the time came with me every week when we went to do that. And he would help me carry the items in. And it became where each week he would say, oh, are we going to see the guys this week? And to know that you're planting those seeds in your children of reaching out and helping and meeting people who aren't at your school or at your neighborhood and getting to know them a little bit. It was something he looked forward to, and it made it that much more memorable for me. And as a teenager, he ended up being in the Youth Service Council for high schoolers here because they were able to see the impact, and it just became normal. Sure. The need to serve others was really embedded in our family. I grew up in Detroit, the youngest of 6 kids, and while I don't think we had a whole lot of money, we had a lot to give. Our whole family sang at the 4:30 Mass. My parents were involved in the millage renewal in the Detroit public schools because they knew how important arts and sports were for really inspiring youth. So we would go down as a family and help at the fundraisers for that. We got to interview the Detroit Tigers when we were young because they did press spots for it. But it was always just something we did. There were parishioners there was a widow who came and had Thanksgiving and supper with us, or Christmas with us. And we used to ask, why is she here? And my mom would say, well, because she needs somewhere to go. And it was just, again, it was an everyday occurrence of reaching out and helping the people around you, I guess. One story that comes to mind is the reaching out and finding new opportunities to serve. And this story is about a conference level activity that we did where we realized that the families that we visited through the year at Thanksgiving time, again, they could go through and get turkeys from the food pantry or whatever, but not necessarily all the fixings of the meals and not necessarily honoring their particular traditions, if you would. So at that time, the spirit of St. Vincent was very strong in the school as well, and we partnered with them where each kid in the classroom brought a single item to put in the basket. So there was rice, there was potatoes, there were onions, and those sorts of things. So all the ingredients for the feast went, and we put a gift card in so that that family could buy what meat they might choose, because not everyone maybe wants a turkey. And the kids all made happy holiday cards for the families, and they packaged them all up and made them beautiful, and we took the baskets to the families that we had visited, and that spirit of reaching out and recognizing a unique need maybe, and just embracing the joy that comes from giving. I don't know, that one kind of popped in. Absolutely. So the conferences make the organization work because we are the ground zero. We are the hands and feet reaching out into the community directly, visiting with people in their homes and helping them connect to the services of St. Vincent de Paul. The food pantry is at the district level, organizes it for the conferences. And so the conference activities really support and are the face-to-face at a very deep level with our neighbors. Obviously, we do face-to-face service at the pantry as we meet people. We used to be able to host them through in person before the numbers were so high. So you definitely get client interaction with that and neighbor interaction with that. But at the conference level, you're in such a deeper relationship with the people you serve. There's a saying with our St. Vincent de Paul Society that no need is foreign. Well, if you're not sitting down and talking to someone, it's pretty hard to figure out what those needs are, and it enables us to maybe sense a need that they wouldn't necessarily have verbalized it. Early on in our conference, we used to encounter a lot of home visits that we did, where the moms and babies were sleeping in the same bed, and that was a concern. I had a nephew who died of SIDS, and I went, oh my goodness, we need to help this. And so our conference started providing the pack and play, the little collapsible cribs for new families. And then we were able to share that need at the district level. And then they started finding ways to provide those to the families. But without that deeper connection and that deeper level, there's some needs that might not rise to the surface that help us be the creative organization that we are to really find those needs. What have I learned from St. Vincent de Paul? I've learned that there is so much joy in the service and in the giving. It is not a challenge to do most days. There's days where there's a lot of other things going on, and you might go, I've got to go in and pack boxes. And then you get there and you are so filled, and it is such a meaningful opportunity to be able to serve that is really incredible to be involved at that level. And I think as you serve people and you see their humanity and their similarities, it helps you not get sucked into the chatter that occurs where people sometimes say, oh, they're just working the system. They just, want to save their money for alcohol instead of groceries. And to people who say that, I say, there's no one who's in that line waiting to be handed a box of food because they want to be. There is not a person in that line that wouldn't rather go to the store of their choice and choose the items of their choice off of those shelves. They're there because they need it. And it is our honor to be able to serve that role. I think that my perspective on service has changed through the one-on-one relationships and service at the home visit level in particular. Really being able to hear the stories of our neighbors has opened my eyes to the world in a very big way. It's really helped humanize the statistics, if you will. We hear a lot about the numbers of poverty, a number of kids living under the poverty level. But when you walk into an apartment and see kids sleeping on the floor and realize, oh my gosh, that could be my child, that could be my situation. To be able to recognize and truly see Christ's face in those we serve is a powerful spiritual connection kind of to the universe. And really, it feeds your soul. It feeds my spirituality, hearing the realities of those we serve and the challenges that they've faced that I happen to not have to because of where I was born and how I had the opportunities of two working parents when I was younger. There's just challenges that are out there that we don't dream of. I think for things to implement, it's part of the learning process that we go through daily through our interactions. One new thing that we're doing are the micro loans program. And I know that there was a home visit that I did, probably 10 years ago, of a single mom with a young boy who was my kid's age at the time when I went to visit her. And her son had been sick for a couple weeks, and she didn't have a job with PTO. And so she was behind on rent. And to cover the rent, she went and got a payday loan. And I will never forget that loan was a $300 loan, and her payments every 2 weeks were $160 interest only. She was never going to get underneath that if our conference hadn't been able to step in and help her pay that off. And so the microloan program that has just been incepted and is starting to reach out will hopefully get that payday lender out of business. It used to be illegal in Wisconsin to have those kinds of rates, and it's not now. The average payday loan rate is anywhere from 350 to 600% interest, and it buries families who are just in an emergency and need to get out. So my hope is that that program continues to grow and puts the payday lenders out of business, that gets legislature in place. The other thing I think that will I know that we're looking at doing and starting when we go to visit families and we are able to give them a voucher for the furniture they need for their homes. They don't necessarily have a way to get it there. It's a challenge. And so we are starting to investigate ways to get those goods delivered to them. But a lot of these families don't have cars. They don't have a truck to throw it in. They don't have a credit card to go and rent a U-Haul. All the small things that we take for granted at times. So I think going into the future, just continuing to be listening to the conferences who are out doing the home visits, who gather once a month and talk about what's going on, just to keep listening and to hearing what new needs might be arising. Yes. Philanthropy can be a challenge at that level because we know St. Vincent as the thrift stores. We might know them at the parish level of, the food truck drives. Let's all bring our brown paper bags and fill the truck. But the reality is there are so many other activities that are going on and programs that need funding. And I don't honestly think people are aware of all the society does. I think one of our challenges moving forward is to show people the good that we're doing. The humility thing can get in the way because we don't go out and toot our horn enough, I think, to really help people understand all the programs that we do. Even in the parishes themselves don't realize that our members are going out and visiting these families in person and bringing them the household goods they need. At the district level, the Seton program that's supporting people who have young single parents, single custodial, it could be a grandpa, it could be mom or dad, but single parenting, where they've just gotten out of homelessness, there's so many things that can go wrong right after you get in, and it's so many challenges that the Seton program is now kind of wrapping around those families and keeping them in a secure, stable home. That's something we need to share with the community so they understand the good that we're doing there as well. What advice would I give to future volunteers? Go do it. It's a blast. It's a lot of fun. The pantry is a really joyous, ruckus place to go and serve. And at the conference level, you make friends the way you don't in so many other parish activities. When I used to try to talk to new parish members at our volunteer drives, that happened at the parish level, I told them that I used to volunteer for youth ministry in the church, my high school youth ministry, and my husband and I both volunteered in those kinds of ministries, teaching the kids and, the dances and things. But once I joined St. Vincent Conference, I made friends. When you are serving along other people and addressing the needs of your neighbors, a bond is formed that is like no other. You really have a diverse group of people coming together for one goal, and it makes exceptional friendships. I'm no longer with the parish of the conference that I started, and yet all the members that I've served with through the years, I still count as my friends. And that is an experience and a depth that I don't think you get at some of the other volunteer opportunities. So I would encourage people, if you're thinking about it, do it. Don't be afraid of the people that we serve. They're not scary. They're just people going through a rough time.